Behind me is the Grove Museum and Home. Let's go check it out. We'll talk about it a little bit while we look around. Located right off the main highway here in Tallahassee. Free entrance. It's amazing right here in downtown Tallahassee. You'd never know this was here. And it's right in the middle of the city. Back in its day when it was built, it would have been wilderness and farmland around it. Come down a little path from the parking lot. Now it's opening up. The front lawn area. Oh, look at that. Big old home. Pause a minute, reflect on that. What has become known as the Call Collins House was originally built by Richard Keith Call. He served 2 terms as Florida's territorial governor. He purchased the land that would become known as the Grove Plantation around 1825. In the mid-1830s, he started building this house using his slaves. The house was completed around 1840. Let's go look at the house, see what it's about. We're now in the basement of the home.
So yeah, feel free to wander around. This first exhibit sort of talks more about Governor Collins' career. This is Governor Collins' private office as he left it. So everything you see in this room, this is 100% original to Governor Collins. Everything from the hats, the pictures, the books, the knickknacks, all the furniture, it is originally his. When he passed away in 1991, his wife, Mary Call Collins, basically closed the doors of this room and left everything untouched. So definitely get a good look if you like.
That's wild.
This is his side office. Kind of a similar thing. He also used this desk, and his wife curated all these awards on the wall. And then this last room here talks a little bit more about the building of this house and the folks who built it. Some of the archaeology that we have done on site is also sort of displayed here. So yeah, that comes the basement. Feel free to wander around.
As the guide told us that this was his office, it must have been more in his senior years, because as you can see from these pictures from the Florida Memory Archive, when he was a family man, this was the kitchen and the breakfast and the eating hall where the dining room area was located. Even though the Collins family sold the Grove property to the state of Florida in 1985, Governor Collins and his wife continued to live here. Governor Collins passed away here at the Grove in 1991 and is buried in the family cemetery. His wife, Mary Collins, passed away in 2009 and is also buried in the family cemetery, which is located here on the property of the Grove. His son, Thomas Leroy Collins, Jr., is also buried in this cemetery. He was killed in 2010 when the bicycle he was riding was hit by an SUV in Tampa, Florida. Also worthy of noting, Mary Collins, Governor Collins' wife, was the great-granddaughter of Richard Keith Call, former territorial governor who built this house.
It is a brick staircase, so it's very strong. It's just all different height steps. So if you'd like to use that, you're more than welcome to. Just make sure you hold on to that hand if you do.
Yes, sir. Definitely. If I fell, I wouldn't sue you. We just come out of the basement. We're back on the first floor. Several rooms here. See a couple off to the right, a couple off to the left. We'll come back and look at those. Each one representing a different time era. This is the first floor. We've got some second floor too to go to. That's looking back toward the entry. Here you can see what the rear entry and the staircase looks like now versus what it looked like in the 1950s. Let's go into this first room on the right. Tallahassee. Governor Call also owned Orchard Pond Plantation in Tallahassee. Next to the second room. Tells you about the history and the growth and change around North Florida. Just got a little deal here. Check that out. During Governor Call's military career, he traveled extensively and participated in the removal of Native American Indians from the Southeast. As a politician and a businessman in Florida, he promoted building new towns, expansion of plantation slavery, and welcomed westward growth. During Governor Call's lifetime, the United States witnessed dramatic social, political, and technological changes, such as the westward expansion creating new states within the United States, increased tensions over slavery, the Civil War. New technologies such as the steam engine moved people and products faster and farther than ever before. There's a portrait of Richard Keith Call as a soldier. Richard Call served as a first lieutenant under General Andrew Jackson during America's Indian Wars. Tells you about his connection to Andrew Jackson. After serving as Andrew Jackson's personal aide in 1814 in Florida, he returned to Florida with General Andrew Jackson in 1821 to help set up and establish a territorial government in Florida, as Florida had been newly acquired from Spain. After resigning from the Army in 1822, Call decided to make Florida his home and resided there, opening his legal practice. Call originally lived in Pensacola when he moved to Florida and was elected to represent Florida in Congress from 1823 to 1825. And this one tells you about his connection to Tallahassee. In 1824, Richard Call married Mary Kirkland of Hermitage, Tennessee. Shortly thereafter, they relocated to Tallahassee and brought with them their 10 slaves. In 1825, the Calls purchased the land here in Tallahassee that would become known as the Groves. It originally consisted of 640 acres. In the 1830s, using his slave force, Richard Call started on the house here known as the Call Collins House. It was completed sometime around 1840. We have a gun with a bayonet and the sheath with the bayonet on the other side. And a sword. Let's see what it says. American militia officers, sword, blade, and scabbard. American long rifle. A French patterned sword bayonet. Unlike most politicians of the day, Call had a lot of backdrop in what was going on. Call had left college in 1813 to fight in the Creek War, which occurred during the War of 1812 with Great Britain. He also served under General Andrew Jackson in the First Seminole War from 1817 to 1818, and was still heavily engaged with the Army and politics during the acquisition of Florida from Spain. In 1856, he was a delegate for the Know Nothing Convention in Philadelphia, but he walked out over the North versus South split over slavery, specifically demanding that Section 12 in support of the Kansas-Nebraska Act be restored. For those of you interested in history, that's two things you can look up that's pretty interesting. The Know Nothing political movement and the Kansas-Nebraska Act. Dedicated to Richard Keith Call on the ship of the Hornet and his history. And we come into the second room on the right. Take a little peek in here before we get started. Wooden floors, all creaky. During his appointment as a receiver in the land office, Richard Call had a lot of insight into the developing areas of Tallahassee. These insights greatly helped him as he was an entrepreneur. In this, he was able to successfully run 2 plantations, the Grove and Orchard Pond Plantation. By 1860, he had more than 100 slaves and was the 3rd largest slave owner in the county. It tells more about his entrepreneurship. Gives you some time, the railroad tracks. This helped him to emerge as one of Florida's leading businessmen. He invested in a variety of profitable business ventures, including banking, land speculation, railroads, brick making, construction, and agriculture. Contribution to the economic development of Florida. Research to the slave community. Documents enslaved people of the Call family. They did have slaves here on the place. In 1860, enslaved people made up 70% of the Leon County population. At that time, Richard Call owned 2 plantations, one at Lake Jackson and Orchard Pond, as well as the Grove. He himself had nearly 200 slaves that worked as properties, and also that he worked at the Tallahassee Railroad Company. Leroy Collins. Governor Leroy Collins. Come over here. We've got photographs of Richard Call in his older years. Southern Unionist. Then over here on this wall, we have a map of the state of Florida. Annual report of the Survey General for 1860. Information on the Florida War and Osceola, the Second Seminole War. Also known as the Seminole War, which was 3 conflicts that occurred between the United States and the Seminoles between 1816 and 1858 in Florida. Some historical facts on it and about the Southern Unionist colonists. Southern Unionists were white Southerners who lived in the Confederate States who were opposed to seceding from the Union. Over to the house on the left. The curator told me they actually came in the back door. So that's the back of the home. Portrait of Richard Q. Call. The painting above the fireplace is a copy. Tell them about Mary Call Collins. We're still in the center hallway. Let's start with this first door on the left. Sit all the way down. I love these old maps. This is telling you about Ellen Caldwell. Into the New World.
Diary entry, March 2nd, 1865. Noni is very much excited and has just asked me if I thought the Union soldiers would be mean enough to steal her dolls. Asserting her belief that they would, she's busy packing away her doll clothes. 24 hours will tell whether our time has come or whether it's another cry of wolf.
At the desk, mother, businesswoman, an advocate, telling you about some of the achievements and things that she accomplished. Ellen Call was a world traveler. She traveled all throughout the United States and Europe to the different World's Fair to represent Florida. I thought this was pretty cool on her desk. You can move the documents and see what's underneath. There's a picture of her. At each event, she witnessed the unveiling of new inventions and used her social connections to advocate for Florida's interests, all before women had the right to vote. That fireplace. I'm gonna come over here and tell you about the Grove during the war on the home front.
Diary entry, May 1st, 1865. One could hardly believe to have seen the assemblage in my grove this afternoon, that a destructive and desolating war had been waging for 4 years over our land. The little girls of Tallahassee celebrated the day and inaugurated their queen, for which ceremony I loaned them the use of my grounds. It was a beautiful sight to see so many lovely children, so bright and unconscious of the uncertain and clouded future. Diary entry, May 10th, 1865. I was suddenly interrupted this morning by our servant boy running in screaming out,
Her parents were Richard Cole and Mary Cole.
"Yankees, Miss Ellen, Yankees." And I found myself running with the rest of the children to see the Yankees who were just entering town by my house. General McCook and 20 men arrived today to take command of Florida. His main force of 450 men, he left some miles distant.
And this is the room beside it, I guess, appears to be like a parlor of some sort. This is the parlor as it appears today. In this transition, you can see what the parlor looked like in the early 90s. If you notice, the painting, the clock, and the mirror are the same. You can't really get in there. We'll go around the other side and get a view from that side too. This is that first door we looked at, same room, just a different angle. To the left here is the doorway we were standing in a while ago before we walked around to get this angle view. When Governor Leroy Collins passed away in 1991, his body was held in state here at the Grove. This very doorway is where his coffin sat. I just met a college student from Taiwan. So let's go upstairs. A picture of the Collins family posing on this staircase in 1956. Check out this spiral staircase. We'll out so I get to the top, how the shapes hang. Let's pause right here. Take a look up. The spiral staircase. We'll take a look down. Very ornate. Once again, let's start on the right. Before we do though, let's walk down this main hallway here on the second floor. Look at that big old doorway and window. Man, what a view. This is actually the front of the house. I didn't know that. We actually entered through the back of the home. Let's go back and enter down here. talking about the evolution of Tallahassee. Showing what used to be here and how it looks today. Writing desk. Check that out. This desk is on loan from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, Division of Recreation and Parks. Caroline Brevard. That's pretty neat. Caroline Mays Brevard was the granddaughter of Richard Call. She was born here at the Grove and was also an educator, historian, author, and a professor at Florida State College for Women, which is now part of the Florida State University. A large elementary school was built in her honor and named after her in 1924 that is now part of the Bloxham building. So this was her desk. Author, teacher, and historian, Caroline Carey Mays Brevard. I've taken it that this section is about Miss Brevard. That's one last kind of pan that around before we go on to the next room. Renette Long Hunt was the granddaughter of Ellen Long. During her ownership of the Grove, Renette engaged in such businesses as teaching art classes, renting rooms, and also built rental cottages. One of those cottages still remains and is used for the Grove staff officing. And we're going to come back out in the hall across here. There's our staircase. This room is dedicated to the Holmes Motel business that was run by Mrs. Renette Long Hunt. To convert it into a hotel, she built several partitions within the home, built a sleeping porch on the north facade, and constructed additional bathrooms on the east side. During this period, there was also a fire on New Year's Day in 1934 that broke out on the second floor, which burned a large section of the roof and destroyed many, many family heirlooms. Old luggage. Paid $5 in 1941 at Camp Canteen. Herman H. Gaynor. In this section of the video, there was a lot of background music. When I tried to upload the video, it hit me with a copyright strike. So instead, I'll tell you a little more history about this area of the house and the history of Mrs. Renette Long Hunt. Another Tallahassee historical event that happened here at the Grove during Miss Renette's possession and ownership was in 1908, the first Tallahassee Country Club organized here at the Grove. Mrs. Hunt passed away in 1940 at the age of 66 years old, and is also buried in the Call family cemetery here on the property. Buried beside her is her white poodle, which you can see here in this picture, named Buster. Leaving that room. Coming in here, this is the final room on the second floor. It's talking about the governor that owned the home as well. There's a picture of Chief Osceola. This is another one of those spots where they hit me with a copyright infringement. I'd originally put a speech from Governor Leroy Collins in here, so instead I'll tell you a little bit of history about him during his candidacy. Leroy Collins was born and raised in Tallahassee. His political career first got started in 1934 when he was elected as Leon County's representative to the Florida House of Representatives. Then in 1940 he was elected to the Florida Senate, and along in 1941 is when he purchased the Grove property here. In 1942 he was re-elected to the Senate, but resigned to join the military and serve in World War II. In 1946, after the war, when he came home, he was re-elected to the Florida Senate. In the 1956 governor election, he made history as the first governor to win an election in the first primary election, defeating 5 other Democratic candidates. During his governorship, he focused on education, strengthening the school system, and if you're familiar with the Groveland Four, he also commuted Walter Irvin's death sentence to life in prison. He explained the commuting of the death sentence to a life sentence as, "My conscience told me it was a bad case, badly handled, badly tried, in which I was asked to take a man's life. My conscience would not let me do it." If you're not familiar with the Groveland Four case in Florida, you should look that up and do a little research on that. Governor Collins' son, Leroy Jr., a retired U.S. Navy Rear Admiral, sought the 2006 Republican nomination for the United States Senate from Florida, but he lost to Congresswoman Katherine Harris. A lot of information in the Florida archives on Governor Collins. That's pretty much it inside the house. Let's go take a look outside. So now let's go and look at the actual front of the house from the other side. Found out from him inside that this is actually the back of the house where you enter. Let's go check that out. Walk around it. It's a side view of the home. Some kind of other structure over here. Very ornate grounds, well trimmed. It's a good pan of the side of the house. The side lawn. Walk right here to the front. Front lawn here. And that's the front of the home. On the second floor, if you look at that window there, right in the center of the screen, that's where we were looking out on the center hallway. On top of just being a naturally beautiful home, these old large oaks, different species of trees here, really set off the tone of it. Sycamores. Very stately feeling. One little last pan of the backyard here before we go. On the way out, headed down this trail to the parking lot. I just spotted some headstones. So apparently there's a cemetery on the ground here too. Let's go check that out. A small cemetery. Let's see who all we got here. That was recent. I bet that was the last guy that owned the house. Leroy Collins Jr. is buried here. Thomas Leroy Collins. Mary Collins. Greek style. Dr. John Call. Richard Call. Laura Call. Mary Call. Mary Williams. This is Lady Fan, Mary Fannie Williams. Ellen Long. I can't read that one. Richard Keith Call, Grand Master. Territorial Governor of Florida, 1836 to 1839 and 1841 to 1844. Long. Cora Gamble Long, Renette Hunt, very common back in these days. People buried their people not far from their home in family cemeteries. Theodore Brevard, Mary Carter. Pretty neat. Sets out behind the property. Well, that's pretty well it over here at the Grove. Really cool place. It's free. They do accept donations. You can get a guided tour if you book ahead, or you can just go in and take your time and tour it yourself. Well worth your time. It'd probably take you, if you're not really stopping and reading, you could do it in about an hour. I really stopped and read everything, and of course taking pictures. Took me about 2.5 hours. I appreciate y'all following along.